Well, as we said, the eyes of the world are watching what's happening here in Washington, including over in the UK. And in the UK today, Sir Keir Starmer has been responding to the enormous security failures that led to the Southport knife attack in the summer. You will remember it led to several weeks of rioting across the UK in the summer. Prevent that it is the government's excuse me a moment as we're figuring out exactly where we are here. But indeed, it was the extremist threat that was posed by the attacker Axel Rudakubana. And you see here his mugshot. They missed it, allowing him to knife and murder 3 young girls in a nursery.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this is that Keir Starmer today has denied any claims of a cover-up, insisting that he knew of this background. But he's withheld it from the public, he says, because he didn't want to deny the victims justice at trial. Nigel Farage, though, has been telling his side of the story on X, saying that he thinks the Prime Minister wasn't entirely forthcoming on this issue. And that's where it gets interesting, because some of the commentary on in the newspapers tonight refers to the government's keenness to get their point across before Elon Musk gets distracted on this side and starts tweeting as he did about the child grooming gang. So let's bring in Tom Simons, who's been watching this for us. Tom, that element is the new reality, really. You've got a government in the UK responding to an entirely domestic issue, but trying to get ahead of the story because they're concerned about how it might be portrayed from this side.
Definitely. And in fact, Keir Starmer's a former senior prosecutor in the UK back in the day, back in the 2010s. And so you would have thought would have been an ideal person to deal with, A, these awful grooming gangs, often Asian men in northern cities attacking, grooming, sexually abusing white girls, and B, this horrendous triple knife attack, 3 young girls murdered in the northwest. You'd think he'd be on top of all of that as a former prosecutor. But he did struggle with the grooming gangs, and it's because Elon Musk took the initiative away from the government, started talking about something that perhaps Keir Starmer felt he had dealt with, as he had, in 2011, and that public opinion followed. And as you say, I think it is true to say that the government, Starmer, they've got off the blocks very quickly to promise a public inquiry into the Southport murders, the 3 girls, and to say that there were already lessons to be learnt. There's a body that's supposed to pick up when people might be at risk of extremism. This guy was not a terrorist. He had no political ideology, but he was extremely dangerous. And the question is, should that body have picked that up at an earlier stage and prevented those deaths?
Just more generally, Tom, obviously Sir Keir Starmer and David Lammy are trying to strengthen relations with the Trump administration, but there is, most notably, and we saw it yesterday in the Oval Office, a political vibe shift here in so many different areas, on green targets, on new rules, on diversity and inclusion, on protection for civil servants, but also on the cultural issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think from London, they're probably looking across at all the razzle-dazzle in the US and saying to themselves, we're OK so far. Great Britain has not been mentioned. The United Kingdom has not been mentioned by Donald Trump. The tariffs, well, that's so far Mexico and Canada. So I think they'll probably be quite confident at this stage. But as you say, it's an enormous challenge. I was quite struck with an article that Lord Mandelson, who's Britain's pick to be the chief diplomat in Washington, wrote on Fox News, of course, very carefully worded. He picked up all the major points. He called Trump's victory a comprehensive victory. He called him a great campaigner. He said he was straight-talking, deal-making instincts. He said the US was right to ask NATO for more money, and he said that we were old partners offering new ways of working. So check, 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 or tick, 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 as we would say in the UK. Every single one of those points hit on the nail. And I can say, having heard a speech from the Foreign Secretary David Lammy recently, he is saying very similar things.
All right. Thank you so much. Really interesting to get that perspective. And Joel, I know she was scribbling furiously as we were watching that there. I'm curious, from your post here in Washington, how do you see the reaction that is happening there in the UK?
I mean, it's quite distressing, quite frankly, as a person who's worked in American foreign policy for a number of years, for decades, to see countries afraid of the United States in such a visceral way, to see foreign ministers basically using Trump talking points to gain favor from him to protect their countries. That's not how states are supposed to work with each other. That's not how countries are supposed to work with each other, to work together as equals and deal with hard issues as equals rather than the fear of a close ally. Look, Donald Trump is already trying to rhetorically attack our allies, Panama, Sweden, Canada. Who next? I find it very distressing. I'm not sure what the goal is. And I think that when you add to that the social media platforms who are echoing his rhetoric, all the big shots sitting there, the plutocrats at the inauguration, sitting in front of his cabinet choices, more important than his own cabinet, that is a very distressing signal to send to the world.
I am the advance envoy for the special relationship. Okay.
There was a reason you were
and
here.
I got here before
Great,
Lord Mandelson. But there was some reporting this weekend that maybe his papers would be rejected by Donald Trump. They're really irritated that Labour sent people over here to campaign for Kamala Harris. Can you really imagine that they would say no?
You know, I think as we move forward, President Trump is going to look at it on a broad stroke. But this notion that, they're catering to President Trump, I don't look at it that way. They know President Donald Trump. They've worked with him for 4 years. He was a president before. So this isn't new. A new president.
But Elon Musk's influence, perhaps, is something new.
Of course. And,
With reform in the wings.
Yeah, I saw all those folks that were sitting there, and people this morning are all up in arms that you had Meta and you had Elon Musk. The last election, they were with Joe Biden. So, I mean, it's like they're not dumb people here. They know exactly what they want. So now they're currying favor. They're trying to get in with, I don't know about influence. They want to make sure they're at the table. They want to make sure that their voice is heard. I can guarantee you this. President Trump will hear everybody's voices, and he's going to make his own decision. His own decision.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be one to watch, isn't it? And of course, when Nigel Farage is tweeting, he does look this way for support from some within the Republican movement. We'll see how that debate evolves over the next 24, 48 hours. We're going to take a short break. Do stay with us. Plenty more to come on the programme. You're watching BBC News.